It's 11:43 at night. You open your banking app again, not because you expect the number to change, but because part of you still hopes it might. The balance sitting there isn't your savings, it's everything: rent, groceries, gas, the next unexpected expense that always seems to arrive at exactly the wrong time. You stare at the screen for a few seconds before locking your phone, then 30 seconds later, you check again. At this level, every purchase has a conversation attached to it. You don't buy things automatically anymore. You negotiate with yourself first. Maybe next week, maybe after payday, maybe when the credit card balance is lower. Nobody sees these conversations happening, but they happen every day, quietly, repeatedly, until eventually, managing money starts feeling less like planning a future and more like surviving the present. This isn't rock bottom. That's what makes it difficult to explain. Nothing is collapsing. Nothing is on fire. Life simply becomes a series of calculations, every decision filtered through one question: can I afford this right now? And eventually, that question follows you everywhere. Then something small happens, not life-changing, not dramatic: a raise, a better opportunity, an extra few $100s every month. On paper, it doesn't look important, but psychologically, it feels enormous because for the first time in years, the numbers begin moving in the right direction. A few months later, something happens that would have seemed impossible not long ago. You pay off your first debt completely. The balance reaches zero. To someone else, it's just another number on a screen. But to you, it's proof that your decisions are finally changing your future. For the first time, discipline feels more rewarding than spending. Not long after, your savings quietly cross a number you've never seen before. 5 figures, $10,000. You don't spend it. You don't celebrate it. You simply open the app several times a day just to make sure it's still there. It isn't the money that changes you. It's the feeling that maybe you're finally becoming the kind of person who can build it. Eventually, curiosity replaces fear. Instead of asking how to save every dollar, you begin asking how money actually grows. You spend evenings reading about investing, compound growth, and businesses. The words feel unfamiliar at first, but every page changes the way you think. For the first time, you stop seeing money as something you earn. You begin seeing it as something that can work beside you. You make your first investment with money you worked hard to save. It isn't a huge amount, but it feels enormous because you've never watched your own money disappear on purpose before. The next morning, the market drops. The screen turns red. Every instinct tells you to sell before things get worse. But after everything you've learned, you decide to wait. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Slowly, you realize that investing isn't about predicting tomorrow. It's about believing in years that haven't happened yet. Years pass almost without you noticing. Saving becomes automatic. Investing becomes routine. You no longer check your account every hour because your confidence no longer depends on today's number. Instead, you begin measuring progress differently. You notice how your money quietly earns money while you're busy building your career. For the first time, your future starts helping your present instead of the other way around. Your portfolio begins producing returns that once required weeks of work to earn. It isn't enough to change your life overnight, but it changes something much more important: your understanding. You realize that every dollar can become an employee if you give it enough time. Suddenly, the question isn't how much money you make, it's how many assets are quietly working while you sleep. Your income slowly stops depending on the hours you work. A small side project that once earned almost nothing begins covering real expenses. Month after month, you choose to reinvest instead of spending. Friends upgrade their lifestyles while you quietly upgrade your assets. Nobody notices the difference at first. That's the advantage. The biggest financial transformations usually happen long before anyone else can see them. One day, your investments earn more in a month than your first job paid in weeks. The number surprises you, but what changes isn't the money, it's your relationship with time. Every hour becomes more valuable because you understand that your best work is creating systems that continue producing long after you've finished building them. The first 6 figures arrive more quietly than you imagined. There are no fireworks, no dramatic celebration, just another Tuesday afternoon when you refresh your portfolio and realize your net worth has crossed $100,000. For a moment, you smile, then you close the laptop and go back to work, because you've learned that milestones matter far less than the habits that created them. As your investments continue growing, something unexpected happens. People begin asking for advice. Friends who once laughed at your budgeting habits suddenly become curious about investing. You don't pretend to know everything. You simply share the lessons that changed your own life. And teaching those lessons reminds you just how far you've already come. The numbers keep growing. but something else changes with them. You stop chasing every opportunity. Years ago, you would have said yes to almost anything that promised more income. Now you understand that protecting your time is just as important as growing your money. Every commitment has a cost, even when it doesn't have a price tag. Real wealth isn't built by doing more, it's built by choosing better. By now, your investments have their own momentum. Some months are better than others, and not every decision works, but you've stopped expecting perfection. Success isn't avoiding mistakes. Success is surviving them without abandoning the plan. Every setback becomes another lesson, and every lesson makes the next decision a little better. Eventually, money stops feeling like something you have to chase every morning. Instead, it becomes something you manage with intention. You spend less time asking how to earn the next dollar and more time deciding where the next dollar should go. The goal is no longer working harder. It's building a system that keeps working whether you're in the room or not. Looking back, the biggest changes weren't in your bank account, they were in your habits. You stopped buying things to impress people. You stopped comparing your timeline to everyone else's. Little by little, your attention shifted from appearances to ownership. That quiet shift became the foundation for everything that followed. You eventually realized that wealth was never about reaching a certain number. Every milestone you once dreamed about became normal faster than you expected. What stayed valuable wasn't the money, it was the freedom to choose your work, your schedule, and the people you wanted to spend your time with. The balance kept growing, but the real return was control over your own life. And somewhere tonight, someone is opening their banking app for the very first time, wondering if they'll ever get ahead. They don't realize that every investor, every entrepreneur, and every financially independent person once stood exactly where they are now. The journey never begins with millions, it begins with a single decision to think differently. Stay patient, and keep showing up long enough for time to do what it has always done. It compounds, and one day, you'll look back and realize that the person who changed your financial future wasn't luck, it was the version of you who refused to quit.